Hello, you're listening to the Saluki Gamescast. This is episode 123. 123.
Keep going.
I feel like the count would be very excited about our episode number. For Wednesday, September 24th, 2025, playing the count for today is me, Justin Young, mocking the count, which I feel like is a grave offense, is Christina Ivey.
Yo.
And Mario Sanders is just like bemused, maybe.
Well, I'm sitting next to Christina. Usually I sit across from Christina, so it's like a little hesitancy.
He keeps like slowly leaning away, like I'm gonna. What did you say beforehand? That I'm gonna pinch you or something?
Poke me and all that stuff.
Well, we haven't gone through that inappropriate behavior training yet for the school year. Like, I think that starts next month, and so
everything until then is free.
Yeah, like you can do anything. Sexual harassment doesn't exist.
Oh, no.
I feel like that's a Always Sunny in Philadelphia
Yes.
type thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's because that entire cast, like, there's no one in that, like, the primary cast who's like even redeemable in any sort of way.
Oh no, completely. I feel like when they eventually end that show, they just all have to die and go to hell. It's the only fair way to end that show.
And even there, they're like trying to talk their way out of it, I'm sure.
How's your week been?
Busy. Yeah, that's the only word. I'm sleepy.
Sleepy from the busyness?
Yeah.
Or just sleepy in general?
I mean, probably both. But like, it's been a lot, and I haven't. Yeah, sleep. It's that time in the semester, Alicia, where it's like all the things are happening. So between the end of September and October is just a very, very busy time.
All right. Mario, how about you?
My week's been pretty chill. Similar as last week, just kind of getting stuff together in preparation for prelims that start next week, which has been good. The article I was reading today was super interesting as I was just sort of like getting those notes together. So, yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you went to Monday Night Raw?
I didn't. I ended up skipping. I had bought a ticket originally, but I was just like, I don't want to drive out to Evansville. And the weather was like kind of sketchy, at least like the forecast. Right. And so I just ended up reselling it back. But I did have a ticket to go, but I did not end up going.
A friend of mine from college, him and a guy he works with now went, and they were like in the front row.
Oh, cool.
Like he's got a picture up on Facebook of them in the background.
Very nice.
And so seemed pretty cool. I don't know how much tickets like that even cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, more expensive than they should be. That's for sure. All of the WWE tickets are so expensive, especially when you then compare them to, I mean, like it's bigger than AEW is, but you know, AEW has a pay-per-view in St. Louis in a few weeks in October. And I was looking at those tickets and it was like half the cost of the ticket that I had originally bought for WWE. It was like $40 is the cheapest ticket or something. So,
well, that's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all for the AEW show.
Right.
I think I spent, after like fees and all that, it was about $90 for this show in Evansville. And this one is at whatever St. Louis University's stadium, Chaffetz. So it's not the big one, but again, it's like, I don't know. I guess I would think that a pay-per-view would be more expensive, but even,
That's what I thought too,
you know, it's a smaller arena, but for it to be $40, I was like, I didn't even watch a ton of AEW, but I would go for that.
I mean, that's what you pay to go to a concert.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Like that seems a very reasable price.
And you can be like, research.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
If only you could deduct it from your taxes.
I was about to well, y'all don't get any. Do grad students get funding?
We do. We get some. I mean, I'm using it all for NCA probably, but
fair.
Yeah. Professional development. I'm
That's
going to.
You could ask the Grad Student Association like for funding.
You'd be like, I'm doing this research project and I need to attend this event. What event? Pay-per-view.
a wrestling pay-per-view event.
Research.
That was, I think I've told this story before off air. I don't know if I ever told it on air, but I used to have a coworker who had the office next to mine. And I remember I had my office door open one day, and she came and she like leaned around and looked in my office, and she said, "Is that Super Mario music?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Are you playing Super Mario Brothers?" And I said, "It's my work." And she said, "Ugh," and just like walked off down the hall.
Wow, the scoff.
The scoff.
I had that as well, but he thought it was cool.
Yeah, she was, I mean, that was just kind of her joking to scoff at me. But I did used to tell people, I was like, yeah, my job is to play video games and watch movies. Like, and they'd go, "Oh, that's just stupid." And I said, "No, it literally is my job." I said, "You can look at my like required duties." I said, "If I'm teaching these classes, I have to do this work."
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a pretty good scam.
It's a good gig.
I could say. Yeah, I once went to a book thing when I was at Boise State that was in Portland, and I was able to get some of that money back because I was like, "This is for research." I bought the book to use in a paper, and so yeah, they paid for part of that trip for me to go visit the author. It was pretty cool.
I've got several books in my office on video games that the department bought for me.
And I don't feel bad about it because again, I ended up using all of that information. So.
No, I mean, look, there are academics who actually do things that are scams. Like, hey, I want to go on a vacation. I'm going to go to this conference, but
not really attend. Yeah.
Right. But that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
So I was in St. Louis over the weekend. I went to the Darkness Haunted House, which no matter how many times I tell people this, nobody seems to believe me. Everyone should go to the Darkness Haunted House. It is amazing. It is a Disney level quality production. It looks like millions of dollars were spent building that.
I'm not gonna lie. When I saw on Facebook that you were going to the Darkness, I was like, "Oh, I believe in a thing called Love Band." Are they doing a show out there? I can see. I mean, like, I don't know any other song that they have, but I can see Justin going to that concert.
That album. I know other songs, but I'm not gonna say them.
No, it's the Haunted House, and it's really cool. They changed a fairly significant amount of it from each year.
I say, do they have like different themes or something like that?
Well, I mean, they don't completely redo it, but like they go through and change like several rooms.
That's cool.
So, and I mean, when I mean like theming of a room, like there's a room you go in and it's like like all Greek themed, and so they have like they have like pillars and stuff that they've built, and like you go and touch them and they feel like real concrete. You know,
wow.
like it's not, hey, we built all this out paper mache and cardboard. Like they've actually spent a ton of money. They have a bunch of dressed actors and everything, like both inside of it and then outside. Like while you're waiting in line, they're performing and doing stuff.
That's cool. And it makes sense that they would have that. While it's not completely new every time, some freshness for people to want to come back. Like, oh, I wonder what they're doing this year.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's really cool. I cannot recommend that highly enough. I would also say it's not terribly scary. It's more kind of cool. They do sort of jump out. They can't touch you, right?
Sure.
But like it's just more like you're kind of walking through going, I want to see the set design. Like I feel like I'm walking through
cool
a Hollywood
film.
Looking at all this. Yeah, it'd be really cool for like a theater department to take students
absolutely.
and see it. Because I'm looking at it going, man, like how much money does all this cost? Especially when you've gone through it multiple times, you start to look at those aspects.
Well, I mean, you got to be careful if you're going to continue to go through it. They're going to start tailoring, like, here's this new room. It's a podcast studio, and you have to record a 2-hour episode by yourself.
I haven't ever done that. I have at times felt like I was the only one talking while doing podcasts. Not this podcast.
Oh.
Generally, this podcast is everyone's
He's
great.
throwing shots. He's throwing shots.
Yeah, I was
at us.
about to say, listen, sometimes I'm quiet because I just don't know.
But the other thing I did is I went to see the band Here Come the Mummies.
Oh, nice.
Which are like fantastic, like just an incredible band to see live. They're actually coming to Marion in like March, I think it is. And again, I would recommend anyone go see them live. Like even if you don't think you'll be the biggest fan, they just put on an extremely entertaining show. So to me, completely worth going to see at least once. But and you know they're the number one mummy funk band. So
Quite the feat.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, look,
Put that on your resume.
I was a member of the number one mummy funk band.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
You look up and they're still dressed as a mummy. It's like, yeah, of course you were.
I mean, that's the great thing is like nobody, you know, they kind of hide their identities and everything. And like even the names are like made up mummy names. And you sort of think about that, like when you leave this band, like how do you go forward with your life? Like if you want to go get, I need a normal day job. Do you like just show up in the mummy dress? Like, look, it's really me. You know, like, I mean, I guess Kiss never had to run into that issue, but you know.
They're not going anywhere near Kiss, or maybe they are. I have not seen them, so.
I would say not as big a production, but like, I mean, certainly like as I would say is
Committed to the
entertaining.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, so like the thing that was amusing, like right before them, they had two opening acts. They had this like guy from Australia, and he was just like, I love the person who is overperforming on stage beyond the like quality of the performance they're actually giving. Like they're so into it. They're like so just sewed on selling you. And this guy was definitely that way. Like at the end of every song, he'd run off stage and then like come back on triumphantly. And you're like, I don't think you're as good as you think you are. I don't think the audience is like into this as much as you're selling it.
Sometimes I love that though, because it's like, I don't know, the joy of performers that are doing that. It's just like, look at like, oh, okay. So again, different level, but like I was not the biggest Jay-Z fan until I saw him in concert. And he comes out on stage, and for like a brief second when he first gets out there, he has this gigantic grin, like he's just like a little kid and like this is his dream kind of thing. And then he like snaps into like Jay-Z mode, right? But it was just that like brief moment of joy, and I was like, oh, I'll listen to whatever you put out at this point. Like, because it I don't know, it feels very genuine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a genuineness to like, oh, you are just a person doing a thing that you love.
Exactly.
I will point out, Genuine is a different artist.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I'm not talking about Pony here. I'm talking about Jay-Z.
no, I mean, like, yes, it is big theater kid energy. Performing up there. And it was like, you know, maybe if every one of your songs didn't go on for 10 minutes.
I got to ask, was this guy also a mummy? Was he just an Australian mummy?
No.
Wow.
I mean, you know.
It's nice that the mummies are giving humans a chance.
Yeah, that's really great.
Well,
of them.
I mean, you feel like they could like work and have opening acts that are vampires or
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
something like that. Werewolves. There's got to be a band called the Werewolves of London.
You should email
I'm sure.
them. You should email them and be like, listen.
I feel like you are not including the other Universal monsters into this. It feels
Some
discriminatory.
monster exclusion.
Yeah, you're not putting a hand down to like lift up
Lift
the
up your other
monsters.
monsters.
All right. Why don't we move on to what we've been playing? Christina, what have you been playing?
Not much of anything, to be honest. Like, this is probably the longest I've gone in a while without, like, playing a game, minus, like, the stuff on my phone that I talk about sometimes. I have been watching more videos about the Sinister Grace chapter of Dead by Daylight, DBD.
Really enunciated it.
I tried.
You got it right that time.
I did.
You said the full title before the abbreviation.
Yes, I've been practicing at home in the mirror.
I feel like we're teaching you AP style.
I'm learning so much. The Sinister Grace chapter is that one that had the Kurusa, basically the body horror person that like her head detaches and like all of her entrails and skeleton, and then it chases the survivor. So it's been it's been really cool on a lot of levels, because like they've had to change like their perspective. Usually killers are first person perspective. The only time they've changed that is when they did Chucky, because Chucky's a little bit above like the character as you're watching him. And so they have to do a similar thing with her when she detaches from her body. And they've also added a bunch of new elements. So it's been cool to watch that, but honestly, that's really all I've had time for outside of life. So
that's always interesting to think about, like hit boxes. And like I know that's been a big problem in Fortnite is when you start, your standard human is like fine, right? Like you can use the same standard hit boxes, but when you start bringing in like all these cartoon and other characters that are going to be different sizes, how do you fit them into that standardized hit box?
And prior to them
Make it feel fair, right?
Right.
Yes, exactly. Prior to them bringing out Chucky, when people would ask me if I thought Chucky was going to be in the game, I said no, because there was no way to make it fair to keep Chucky first-person perspective. And I was like, also, the killer has to pick up the survivors and put them on a hook.
That's right,
How the hell is a little doll going to do that?
Right.
What they do for that actually is pretty ingenious. Like, who is Chucky? Like, what's the name of the guy that like Chucky technically is, that put his soul into Chucky?
I forget.
I forget
I know
too.
it's the like serial killer.
Exactly. So basically what they do is when Chucky goes to pick up something, the spirit of that guy comes out, picks up Chucky and the survivor, and so throws the survivor over his shoulder and holds Chucky. So your perspective is you can see like the side of Chucky, basically. It was really smart, and they're doing a lot of the same things with this new chapter. And so why I like following this game is because it changes all the time. It's
right.
And they're really, really active with their community, even though sometimes they disagree with their community. And that kind of is what keeps me coming back to it. And so, yeah.
I feel like Mortal Kombat had that problem when they wanted to put the xenomorph in.
Yep.
And the xenomorph, right by its nature, is going to not fit the hitboxes. And so, like, if you have a high kick, it's just going to go over the xenomorph's head.
Yep.
So they had to, like, just essentially change the body of the xenomorph to make it fit in there, which is weird and doesn't look right.
That's what they did. So when they put the xenomorph into Dead by Daylight, they had to do something similar because they wanted to do the queen, like have a skin that made it look like the queen, which is so much bigger than regular xenomorph. And so they admitted to, the community that, hey, this is going to be a lot smaller, but we wanted to give you the aesthetic so that you could have that option. But yeah.
We're talking about the xenomorph from Aliens. If somebody doesn't know it by its name.
Yeah,
but if you're not a nerd like us.
I was about to say, if you're listening to this podcast, you're a nerd. You know what we're talking about.
But I do feel like there's different shades of nerd.
I mean, fair. That's Nerdist of me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, fair. All right, Mario, what have you been playing?
Also not a ton. I did finish up A Hat in Time. That game is really good. It's actually a lot shorter than I had thought. I think last time when I was talking about it, I had said I was about a little more than halfway through. I was probably about 90% of the way through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's just because I guess the percent, I was at 55% completed when I said a little more than halfway. But you don't have to collect everything. And so I think
that's very misleading in some games.
And so I think I had only like 3 more levels to actually beat. Or maybe it's a specific, so you collect hourglasses. And I think I had 22 out of 40. And I think you only need to collect 25 before you can get to the final boss. And so I don't know if I'll go back and do any of the other, collect the other ones. I do, like I said, I do think that game is good, but there are, so many other things to play.
Right, sure.
The other one that I was watching somebody play earlier today that I ended up picking up is a game called Megabonk, which
I was watching somebody play that today.
which
Were we watching the same person?
maybe, which is it looks like if RuneScape were Vampire Survivor, not if RuneScape were Vampire Survivors. It's a 3D Survivors like, but it's got this like old aesthetic to it. I don't know how you might be able to describe it better than I can. The way the characters move in particular feels like I'm watching a RuneScape avatar move around.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks very outdated, sort of purposefully.
Yes,
I think.
There's
I
a
think
game that just came out a week ago, I think. So,
well, I just mean, I don't think it's like, hey, we're not very good at making graphics. I think it's a very conscious choice in the way that Vampire Survivors was, right?
Yes.
It was going for that sort of 8-bit Castlevania look. This, I think, RuneScape is probably a good reference point there.
old school RuneScape at the very least, not the new ones.
Yeah, maybe sort of like late 90s PlayStation game.
Yeah.
Might be a way to think about it. But yeah, it definitely has a look to it.
Yeah. And it looks, it's definitely sort of leaning into being very silly, sort of, meme-y in the sense that it, like the jokes that it's
It has some
presenting.
internet humor.
Yeah, definitely. But it was on sale. I think it was like $8 or something like that. So I ended up picking it up and I might play it a little bit tonight.
Yeah, that game looks interesting to me. Like it intrigued me from it. Cause I think one thing is I haven't played one of those.
Yeah.
One of those
really since Vampire Survivors.
Yeah, I played some of the ones in its wake that
Okay.
came out. Auto shooter survival games is one name for them that people came up with. But yeah, I think that game that game intrigued me. I think because it was kind of a little kooky.
The other game that I would say it looks like it's borrowing from is Risk of Rain 2 in particular.
Sure. Yeah.
The aesthetic is definitely that old school vibe, but you have to find like the boss portal, and there are chests that you have to buy in order to get like upgrades and other sort of pillars that you have to activate in order to get the upgrades, similar to the way that Risk of Rain gameplay works. And so, I enjoy those games. Those are the survivor like games, and I feel like it's nice to always have one of those in the rotation. Just of like I got 30 minutes. Let me play something like this.
They're good podcast games or YouTube games.
Definitely,
Something to play while you're listening or casually watching something else.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I agree. I feel like I've kind of wanted to play a new one of those recently. So it also intrigued me. I may end up buying that now. $8 is completely reasonable.
Yeah, I think it's $10, but it's still the introductory sale. I think if it's on sale until the 1st. So yeah, you still got a week to
decide.
Yeah, make your decision. I can give you a review or something.
All right, cool. All right, is that it?
Yeah.
All right, I've been playing a few different things, but two I'll talk about. One, they put out a demo of that new Sonic racing game, Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. So just to give you a little kind of background, I've talked about it on here before, but I think Sonic Racing, I always forget what the actual title of that game is. Sonic Racing Transformed, I think is one of the best kart games ever made. I think it's one of the few that rival Mario Kart. I think that game was massively overlooked at the time, and it's available on Steam and other places now, and I think it's completely worth picking up if you've never tried that game.
I say that was like a PlayStation 3 era game. Is that right?
Yeah,
That's why it got. I feel like that's
Kinda
probably why
lost.
it got lost. Like PlayStation 3 is not quite as bad as the Wii U, but definitely one of those in that era that just didn't. I don't know. I didn't hear a lot about it, at least.
Yeah, and I think it was also a time when the Sonic games were kind of bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we were getting a lot of those sort of cookie cutter 3D, in the wake of Sonic Adventure, which was actually pretty good at the time, has aged poorly. But a lot of those subsequent games they made, to me, were just not very good games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say those Sonic Adventure games, compared it to all the 3D games that came out after them for quite a while, are hold up much better.
So I feel like Sonic's image had been sort of tarnished. So like when you see, we're making a Sonic kart game, a lot of people kind of rolled their eyes at that game.
Plus, like kart games that are not Mario Kart, are typically not that great.
I mean, there's always Garfield.
I knew
kart.
you were going to say that.
I was thinking it as well. It has to get mentioned somewhere.
I mean, we're talking about the classics here.
Sonic, Garfield, and Mario, they're the kings of kart.
Right. The Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Nah.
The Father Hedgehog and the Tabby. So anyways, then they did Sonic Team Racing, which is not a very good game. I did not really like that at all. So this is the new one, and they have been pitching this one as, hey, this is going to be more sort of like, Transformed, and it's pretty good. Like this is one of the better kart racing games I've played. Just playing the demo, the full game I don't think has even technically released yet. I think it maybe comes out tomorrow. But this has been really kind of fun to play that demo. I think there is a really big emphasis on drifting. So, that's not everybody's style of how they want to play one of these games. I'll say it's a more technical game than Mario Kart to pick up and play.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a little bit of it, and I didn't necessarily get the vibe of like drifting was important. I definitely saw the person who was playing it. They were doing a lot of drifting, but there was something about it visually that I did not enjoy. I don't know, like the flickering or the flashing or something. And maybe that's just like watching this person's stream of it added that. So I would definitely still want to give it a chance. So how does it feel to play it?
Yeah.
But it while I didn't enjoy watching it in that sense, it looked good, if that makes sense.
I think it's very chaotic. There's a lot going on screen.
That might have been part of it as well.
And so that is like one of my criticisms of it, that it can be a little overwhelming in that regard. You do, like after you complete the first lap, you are presented with a choice of 2 portals. So whoever's in first place gets to choose which portal to go through, and that will take you to an alternate track. So in Sonic Racing Transformed, you're racing through levels that are either Sonic themed or they're themed around other Sega franchises. So like there's a Panzer Dragoon level, there's an Afterburner level. These are much more just like generic levels. So like it's just, hey, you're in this like sort of fantastical looking environment, but this isn't based on Sonic or anything else. I think some of the DLC is going to have more based on levels. Like there's SpongeBob SquarePants is one of the DLC characters.
The Minecraft one, right?
Right. And so they're going to
probably Persona one because the Joker's going to be in it.
Right. Mega Man is the big thing since people got early copies. That's apparently on the insert. So there's going to be a Mega Man character and level that you get to play. So those might be more interesting. I would say that's one of the most disappointing things because those Sega-themed levels in Transformed are one of the best parts of the game. Like, there's a level on Afterburner and you're like, here's some ships out at sea and like you're like taking off and landing on them. And then you're also like driving through the water. And like this does the same thing in that your cart will transform depending if you're in an area that you need to fly or you're in an area where you need to be in water. So it's doing all that. It's just weird because the levels end up feeling very generic, right? They don't feel like Mario Kart levels that are very themed or...
Yeah, I feel like I saw one where they were in like space and it's like, here's the space level. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, that's cool, I guess.
And you could have done something like Space Channel 5, right?
Sure.
Like taken, Sega has a very long, deep history, and most of that stuff they own outright. So you could do stuff with that.
Or even just that, like, connected back to other Sonic levels,
Sure.
from other Sonic games. Whether, like there's, I think the final level of even something like Sonic Advance, which feels like a more deep cut, but those to recreate something like that, for the real Sonic fans, I think would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, even that movie, the last movie that came out, Sonic 3, the end of that movie is set on a space station.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, you could have done something referencing the movie and everything.
Or I know Adventure 2 ends in space as well.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a ton that they could have done.
So it just feels weird with that. I will say it plays pretty good, and I enjoyed my time with it, which is not something I can say about most kart racing games. I feel like most are, fairly forgettable. But like this feels pretty good. So I would actually, if you're a huge Sonic fan, I would say like at least download the demo and check it out. Because I think you might find a game that you actually enjoy. And the other thing is that this is a more traditional kart racing experience than Mario Kart World.
Sure.
So if that turned you off, this might be more kind of your speed.
Where did you download this? Was it on Steam?
Steam,
or?
yeah.
Okay.
I play this on PC. I do think the demo's out everywhere on all the platforms. The other thing that I played, and I played the full game of this, I haven't completed it yet, but not just a demo, is Shinobi Art of Vengeance. So this is the new Shinobi game that came out a month or so ago. So I don't know, I had a very Sega-themed week for some reason. But anyways, so this is from the same team that did Streets of Rage 4 a few years ago. It has a very similar sort of painted background look to it. It is I will say I was not the biggest fan of Streets of Rage 4. I think that's a pretty good game. I liked the Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge game that came out a couple years after it, as far as a side-scroller beat 'em up. But Shinobi Art of Vengeance, I really, really like a lot. It looks gorgeous. To see that game in motion, like I don't think screenshots do it justice. It looks gorgeous in motion. There's a level that I just got through where you're going through a lantern festival that's happening in a town.
That's cool.
And you start off sort of outside the town and you make your way into the town and they're shooting off fireworks in the background.
yeah.
But like then the backdrops are, as you're running across rooftops and everything, are these sort of like, again, painterly backdrops with everything lit up by these these sort of traditional Japanese lanterns. And it just has a gorgeous look to the entire game. There is some platforming, not as much platforming as it is combat focused. That might change in the later part. But like so far, the platforming is not too difficult. The fighting is a little bit more challenging. It does have sort of accessibility options where I think you can tweak that. I have not done that so far, and I've not really had difficulty progressing so far. But it is the sort of thing where, the first time you face a boss, you'll probably die until you figure out the pattern of that boss, right, and what you need to do. It is, maybe challenging in the style of a sort of 16-bit game, much more than, say, a lot of modern action games. Like something like the God of War games are not particularly super challenging, right? Like you can just kind of, pound the buttons your way through and you don't have to think a whole lot. This one, you are having to think a little bit more. You're having to figure out, like, how do I attack this enemy? Okay, they have a shield. What do I need to do? Oh, I need to leap over this guy's head, and then I need to do my charge attack. That's going to take me a couple of seconds. Can I get that charged up before he turns around and hits me? And then after I hit that, this woman over here is shooting a bow and arrow that's going to hit me. So I need to, as soon as I hit him, immediately jump over and attack her. So you're constantly kind of have to juggle the enemies as you progress. I find that a whole lot of fun, but it's maybe not the style of gameplay that would appeal to everyone. But I think it's just a really well-made game. I think it was the last episode, maybe we were talking about the feel of some games. And this is that sort of game where it just feels really good. When I screw up and when I die, I feel like it's my fault, right? I'm not blaming the controls. I'm not blaming the game for being unfair. Well, I am, but like I know deep down it's my fault. You know, and like the fact that like by the second or third time you fight a boss, you are figuring out, okay, well, this is what I need to do. This is all about execution, right? So it's just really a lot of fun. It's one of those games you kind of feel like a badass. You feel like a cool ninja going through it. And it just plays exceptionally well and looks fantastic while it's doing it. Yeah, like to think that they made a new Shinobi game and it's an amazing game is kind of, you know, a little bit surprising. Like this is a franchise that I feel like has been dormant for a really long time.
I think you said this, and I might have just missed it. You said this is more of like a 2D side-scroller beat-em-up?
Well, not a beat-em-up, more action game.
Did you ever play The Messenger? Does it sort of play similar to that? Is it that sort of style? I don't know if that's just the game that I'm picturing in my head.
Yeah, because like The Messenger's borrowing heavily from Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so this is a little more action-oriented than Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden's a lot of platforming.
True.
There is platforming in this, but not at the level of Ninja Gaiden.
Okay.
And I would say that new Ninja Gaiden, which I have not played the full game of yet, Ragebound, that came out this year. I did play the demo of that. I would say that game is much more focused, from my experience, on platforming than this game is. This game feels much more like it feels like the old Shinobi games, if you ever played any of those. Not a beat 'em up, you know, definitely not Ninja Turtles or Streets of Rage style beat 'em up.
That's what I didn't think. I was just looking at pictures and I was like, I'm trying to think of what game am I picturing in my head, and it might have been that new Ninja Gaiden game that I was thinking of. But after looking at pictures, I now remember seeing this one.
I mean, the fact that they put out a new Ninja Gaiden and a new Shinobi game, 2D side-scrolling games in those franchises in the same year after the drought we've had for both of those is kind of crazy, like, to be honest. But yeah, this is a really cool game. If you like those sorts of, and we don't get a lot of this style of game anymore. You know, this was like the big genre in the 8 and 16-bit era. If you like that style of game and want to play an updated new one, they do a really good job with this. The only thing I'll say, like, really negative about it is you do get different magical abilities, and those are like, hey, press L, L, you know, L1 and R1 at the same time, and then press Y in order to unlock this. And you end up with so many different abilities like that. It's kind of hard to keep track.
Too many. It's one of those things, like, for all the buttons that are on the controller, there's like still too many things that you're wanting to know how to do.
Right. And you can, for the most part, ignore a lot of that stuff. But, you know, obviously the game is sort of designed around you using it. So that's a little frustrating, but, you know, I don't know. Like, sometimes I think games, I feel like games want to be more complicated, and sometimes simpler would actually benefit.
I agree. I don't know if I talked about it on here, but I know that was my experience playing God of War Ragnarok. I was like,
sure,
you've given me 3 different weapons that are all doing different things and all have their own button combinations, and I just want to use one. Just let me use one thing.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, I said the original God of War games really kind of, you know, mash the buttons and get through them. But there's something to be said for that, because those games were really accessible.
Yeah.
And the modern God of War games, while not bad, are certainly slightly less accessible.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, so that's what I've been playing for this week. Let's move on into the news. I feel like the biggest news is maybe the most depressing. Actually, this is maybe not the most depressing story this week. But at least, like, straightforward gaming news, this is maybe the most depressing. Xbox is raising their prices again for the second time this year. This is not stated by Microsoft, but almost assuredly tied to tariffs. So they are raising prices on their systems again. I'll just run through these very quickly. The Series S 512 gigabyte, that started, so that was originally released at $300. I think that's the system you have, Mario, right?
I think so. That's the smaller of the two,
Yeah,
right?
the little white one.
Yes. I don't know if I've got the 512 or the 1 terabyte, but I've got one of those two.
So that originally released at $300. At one point, you could get those as cheap as $200. Like I remember seeing them on sale.
I'd be willing to bet that that's probably the one that I have.
Yeah. And then earlier this year, before this price increase, it was at $380. It will now be $400 going forward. So that's over $100 more expensive than it originally released at. The 1 terabyte S series model released at $350. It was at $430. It will now be at $450. The Series X Digital, so that's the more powerful one, but this is without a disk drive. That originally released at $450. Earlier it was at $550. It'll now be at $600. The Series X, so this is the original version of the Series X that got released at $500. It was earlier at $600. It is now at $650. That's $150 more. What, 4 years into this console generation?
Yeah, I mean, it's looking like, I know you're not done yet, but it's looking like most of these are about a 33% increase.
Yeah. If you look at original price versus what they're selling for now. And then the Series X 2 terabyte model released at $600 was selling at $730. It will now be at $800, so $200 more.
$800 is wild to me.
I mean, and we should note that Series X 2 terabyte is not a PlayStation 5 Pro equivalent. It is just a Series X with a bigger hard drive.
Yeah. So you're spending, I don't know what the digital, how big the internal storage for the digital is, but
I think it's a 1 terabyte. I think it's the same as the X.
$200 for 1 terabyte. I'm sorry. That's not worth it. You just buy an external hard drive and plug it in.
I think the thing that's really crazy about this is like, this feels like Microsoft just completely giving up on hardware.
Yeah.
Like them saying, fuck it, we don't care if you buy our hardware.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the initial, when I saw this, I was like, why? How can they justify raising prices when they're already not selling consoles? Tariffs make sense, but at the same time, it's like, holy moly.
Well, I think tariffs are probably the impetus for this, but the way they're responding to those tariffs is to say, like, okay,
shrug, we can't do anything about this, so pay us more money.
So just for sort of comparison's sake, the PlayStation 5 digital is currently selling at $500. The PlayStation 5 disc version is selling at $550. The PlayStation 5 Pro is $750, so $50 cheaper than that Series X 2 terabyte, and considerably more powerful because it is the Pro model. The Switch 2 is currently at $450, and the Switch 2 with Mario Kart World is at $500. Mario Kart, that Switch 2 with Mario Kart at $500 is not looking so bad now.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that, like, so yeah, I don't know if it's the 512 gigabyte or the 1 terabyte for the Series S that I have, but I do feel like I got it probably for maybe $250. Maybe it was the 300, but that was such a good deal. I think that was Justin's deal of the week at one point.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, especially like if you didn't have a lot of money, but you wanted to move into the next console generation, that selling at $250 was a really tempting way to jump on board this console generation.
Well, and it's something that you could buy that at $200 or $250 and basically think of it as, okay, well, if I then add a year of Game Pass, which is another $100.
It's still cheap.
it's still, you're still getting so much content for a fraction of what, I guess 2/3 of what a PlayStation 5 was costing you.
Yeah. And I mean, so I bought a PlayStation 4 digital when they first came out, or not when they first came out. Oh, sorry, PlayStation 5 digital. Not too long after they came out. I paid $400. That's at $500 now. Right? And I bought a Series X at some point. I think I got it on sale for somewhere close to $400. I didn't pay the $500 it launched at. But now that it's $650, that's at least $200 more than I paid. And I've had that thing for several years now.
The Series X, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't normally talk about prices and that I paid, but I think that's the only way to really talk about this. This has never happened in any console generation before, where the early adopters are sort of being rewarded.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you always, the mentality was always like, oh, maybe I'll wait 2 years and I'll be able to get it for $100 cheaper.
Yeah.
Now it's 4 years later, where you'd think maybe not half of what it originally cost, but again, 2/3 of what it originally cost, and now you're paying $100 to $300, $200 more, depending on which one you want to pick up.
Yeah, and it really feels like this console generation is excluding a fairly big market, right? So the idea that consoles went down in price meant that if you didn't have a lot of money, right, which as a kid, I certainly didn't.
I had no money.
And I'm certainly not rich now, but you could wait a couple years and kind of play those last few games that come out for the previous console generation, or pick up some games cheap that you missed out originally on. And you weren't really missing that much. No. If you came in 2 years late to save that extra $100 or whatever you're going to save, right? That you would, then there would be a lot of cheap games.
Yeah.
And you look at this now and you're like, well, that kid who was waiting because they didn't have the money, or the adult who was waiting because they don't have the money or don't have the money to spend it on video games, right? Now it's more expensive. I feel like they're even less likely to jump on board now.
Yeah, I think about, we're here at a college. I think about college students who, that at $200, that Xbox Series S, we've got to check which letter is which. At $200, that seems like a perfect dorm thing, because it's going to do everything as well. It's going to have all your streaming services on there.
Right.
You can probably play Spotify on there. It just kind of is a do everything machine.
For sure.
I know that's how I justified after I graduated from undergrad why I bought a PlayStation 4 was I'm moving into my own apartment when I was moving to Boise.
It's a Blu-ray player.
This just does everything that I would want it to do. If I want to have friends over, we can watch a movie, we can listen to music, we can play games. This just does everything. And at $200, I think that's such a good deal. But at $400, that's restrictive for a lot lot of students.
Yeah. And non-college students.
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is the sort of thing. I've known a lot of people in the past who owned multiple consoles in their household. So they'd have one on the main TV and then one upstairs for the kids, right? And this becomes even if you can afford one, it becomes much more difficult to say, well, we're going to get a Series S and put it upstairs for the kids, because it's $400 now.
Yeah. Well, and I know we've talked about so much about when a new generation comes out, buying the old generation, because you've got this wide range of games available to you, and you've got all that. And again, that just becomes even more difficult for people to be able to justify.
I think you need to head out.
Yeah, I'm heading out.
All right, so Christina has stepped out. There was a little blip there and everything. It was Christina stepping out. She had to get to a meeting and everything. So we were talking about Xbox prices and just general, how much console prices have gone up, and how they're really pricing a lot of people out of the hobby.
Yeah.
When you think about movies as a comparison, and I often hear people complain about the price of a movie ticket, the price of taking a family of 4 to the movie theater, when you factor in the tickets and the parking and concessions and all that, that a family of 4 can easily get up to, well over $100, close to $200 just to go see a movie, particularly in bigger cities, right? Like your small towns is going to be considerably cheaper. But, when I was in Chicago, I think movie tickets were like $20.
Yeah, I think back home in the Bay Area, we're not even in like Oakland or San Francisco, a suburb of those, and it's still probably $15, $18 to go to the theaters. And I think that is one of the nice things. It's why, I'm not the biggest movie person, but when they've got $5 tickets on Tuesdays, it's like, yeah, sure, I'll go see that one. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, even the matinees around here are like $8.
Yeah.
So, certainly more reasonable. I know over the weekend when I went to that concert, my nephew came with me and my brother, and he was asking about how much things cost in the 90s. And I was trying to explain to him.
It was a nickel.
Well, I was like, when I was in college, we used to go to movies, and it was $4 for a movie ticket. And I said, now the cheapest ticket is $8. So that alone is at least twice the price.
Yeah.
Just to put it into comparison for you. I think he was at one point asking me about video games. How much did video games used to cost? And I said, well, that's a little misleading, but yeah. So I think that's the thing that most strikes me about this is I just feel like it's going to exclude a lot of people from the hobby. I feel like games are already selling. Games sell more, but fewer games are selling as many copies.
Yeah.
Right? So we have the game that sells 20 million copies, your Call of Duty, but we don't have as many games being successful selling. Games used to be able to sell 800,000 copies and they'd be a big hit at that. And so now that's already a problem. You already have more people sticking around and playing Fortnite forever and not investing in new games. And now when people can't buy the new hardware, these games that are designed to run only on new hardware, that don't have a Switch 1 or a PlayStation 4 version, you're completely cutting those people out.
Yeah. Well, and I think, the thing that's most disappointing is that it's going to be I don't know how to say this, and I don't mean for this to come off as potentially dismissive. It's the like fringe gamer fans, right? The casuals, so to put it, the people who are like hardcore into gaming, they're going to find the money. They're going to save up to be able to buy what they need to buy. But it's the person who, maybe I'd like to have this thing again because it's going to do all of these things for me, or I'm sort of interested. But now that price is just like, oh man, that's a lot to ask of somebody.
I have a lot of friends, who are parents, and, women who bought a Switch for themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and not that women aren't gamers. Obviously, Christina and Alicia and other people are certainly big into games. But these are not those people. These are not the people who are really big into games, but they bought a Switch to play Animal Crossing or to play Mario Kart or, because their kids had one and they were like, oh, I really like this game, but I don't ever have a chance to play it because my kids are on it. So I'm going to pick one up for myself so that I can play, these games that really appeal to me. And I feel like when I talk to those people, they're not telling me they're upgrading to a Switch 2. Now, part of that's that the games that would sell them on the Switch 2, I don't think are out yet. But I think also part of it is them looking at the price, and it's $450 to $500, and that's difficult to sell yourself on. And then, you mentioned earlier, like the dorm room system, the Series S. I have a lot of students who own a Switch, to just play Mario Kart or just play, Animal Crossing or some of these other games. Or the sort of frat gamer, right? Who buys it to play college football, play NBA 2K, Madden, and maybe they pick up Call of Duty and one other game. They're
Grand Theft Auto when it comes out.
Right. They're the sort of person that's picking up maybe 2 or 3 games a year.
Yep.
Right. And at $200, $250 even, right? That's completely doable.
Yeah.
I would say up to $300. That seems like reasonable with, inflation and everything. You're getting up to $800.
Well, that's the thing. At $800, I mean, it would be very cheap, but like at that point, just save a few more hundred and get yourself like a solid computer.
I mean, you can get a decent enough one at 800.
Yeah.
But you can get a pretty good one at 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I would be hard pressed to not just make that recommendation to a person. Like if somebody asked me, "Hey, I've got $800 to spend.
Right.
Should I pick up this Series X?" I'd be like, "Well, I don't know. Like I think if you're interested in gaming that much, I would say, and your computer's going to do other things for you as well.
Right,
It's going to last. It's going to last longer, but like, it's more practical, certainly. So,
yeah, I mean, I had that conversation with my nephew over the weekend. He was talking to me about what systems I had, and he said, "Oh, I don't have an Xbox." And he said, "Do you think I should get one?" And I said, "No."
Yeah.
And I think that was before they'd even raised these prices. Maybe that had already come out, but I was like, why? Like, you have a gaming computer. Like, everything comes out on that.
Yeah, especially nowadays. I think there's a couple of things on, like, Game Pass for the console that's, like, stuff from the original Xbox or, like, the 360. But, like, that's not a good enough reason.
No.
That's not a good enough reason to get one.
Yeah. So, this is a depressing trend. We've seen a lot of layoffs in the game industry. I don't think this bodes well for the game industry if console prices are going to continue to climb like this.
Yeah.
I think this just narrows the market more and more. So, like I said, I think this is bad news. Maybe not Xbox as much, but, certainly this is a trend we've seen with PlayStation, Nintendo as well. All right. Some slightly happier news. Kojima Productions was celebrating their 10th anniversary, and as part of that, they showed off a new trailer for OD. That game now has a subtitle. It's called OD Knock, which, of course, Kojima. Like, just what the hell are we doing here? This is their game that is being published by Xbox, which, again, I have no idea what that means anymore. That's not Xbox exclusive. Surely they're going to put this out into PC eventually. If not at launch, this will come to PlayStation as well, because everything is now on Xbox. And Jordan Peele is involved in this production in some capacity.
Yeah, that was going to say, is this the Jordan Peele one? Because I want to say he's working on multiple things. I feel like one of his other games got talked about or got announced. I assume this was at Tokyo Game Show. Is this where all this came out?
Well, I think before.
Okay.
But the Tokyo Game Show is like this week, and
okay.
This was leading up to it and everything. This is the Jordan Peele one. The trailer is interesting. Like apparently Kojima said, well, there's some new game systems at work in this, and the trailer hints at them. The trailer is a woman in a room lighting candles while somebody's knocking at the door, sort of banging at the door. I don't know. Are you going to be using fire? Are there going to be like sort of realistic fire mechanics in this? I don't know. Kojima, I love Kojima because he's crazy and he's one of the few people who's making these sorts of weird games at that scale and budget.
Yeah.
I often talk about the Dreamcast was really experimental at doing weird stuff.
Yeah.
And he's still doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, he kind of just has the green light to do whatever he wants.
And he, for now, can still get that funding, right?
Yeah.
He can get Xbox to give him some money to make this. And he gets Jordan Peele involved, and that gives even more cachet to this, right?
And to tether this back to the last point we were just talking about very briefly, what you were saying about, this will be on PC, this will almost assuredly come to PlayStation. Maybe that's one of those other reasons why consoles are getting more expensive, because people aren't buying multiple consoles. There's no reason to have both a PlayStation and an Xbox, because all the games are all over the place. That's not a good enough reason for them to raise their prices, but that is maybe one silver lining with the way that the trend is going of you don't need multiple consoles. You don't need all of the different things. If you get one, all the games are going to be there for you.
Yeah, but that casual / semi-casual audience, they were never the ones buying multiple consoles for the most part.
That is also very fair.
Right? I mean, you're sort of hardcore gamer. People like us, right, who own all the consoles, which both of us do. I mean, I have told multiple people, like, I can't imagine a scenario where I buy the next Xbox.
Oh, yeah. Almost assuredly not.
And, like, outside of work, I probably wouldn't buy the next PlayStation.
I have definitely thought, like, multiple times, like, I would just consider, like, I don't know what you would get trading them in, or, like, even just, like, selling them on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. But I'm just like, I don't use these that much, because everything I can play just about everything on the computer.
Right.
And so
you might have to wait a little longer on PlayStation. Yeah. They sometimes do that year for their like first party exclusives. But yeah, I mean, I could, if somebody had a gaming PC, I would recommend a Switch maybe if they were interested in Nintendo games, which not everyone is. But like outside of that, like why would you buy a console?
Yeah, I don't mean to necessarily bring us back there, but like I said, that's just kind of the only other thing that I'm just thinking. I was like, that might be one silver lining, but I don't know if that's also necessarily good enough for something that like console hardware companies are thinking about when they're raising prices.
Well, I think that ties back into Xbox's strategy of, this is an Xbox. This is an Xbox. Right? And so when this game was announced, they were still doing, first party exclusives on the Xbox. Now you see this and you go, well, what even is an Xbox published game at this point? Like you are financially like, fronting some money, I assume, on this and everything. But, like what does that even mean at this point? Like you're just publishing this everywhere for them.
Yeah.
Certainly not not the game industry that we traditionally think of anymore. Let's see. Japan has censored Dying Light: The Beast. This is the new Dying Light game that came out a week or so ago. They have removed some nudity, dismemberment, and some segments that showed internal organs of some of the zombies in the game. I say Japan censored this. It was almost assuredly the developer actually did the work to censor this in accordance with Japanese guidelines. Certainly, I think on this podcast we've talked in the past about Chinese guidelines. A lot of supernatural stuff is not allowed in China. Movies like Ghostbusters are not allowed in China. Things that depict ghost and supernatural elements. Japan is much more restrictive on gore than, say, we are in the U.S. or a lot of European countries are. Germany has restrictions on Nazi symbols that you're allowed to show. So games like Wolfenstein often are edited to use replacement imagery. You can't show an actual swastika or the Iron Cross. You have to like make something that sort of resembles it but isn't that.
Sure.
So this is not certainly unheard of, but I do think it's interesting, particularly because this week we were also getting that new Silent Hill F game.
Yeah.
So
I think that came out this week, I believe.
Yeah. So it is interesting to think of Japan makes horror games, but American-made horror games that go to Japan, like the different sensibilities, right?
Well, I think this is what we talked about when that game first got announced, the new Silent Hill. That is of just. I think this is one of those spaces where you can have these like really fascinating conversations about like cultural conceptualizations of horror, right? And how something like a Silent Hill could explore horror from all these different cultural backgrounds, or like any game could do that. You could make, what does an Indian horror game look like, or, African horror, anything that, these different cultural backgrounds. And I think that, something like that would be very interesting to see, because it goes to show there is that overlap, and that like fear is something that, we all experience, but what elicits that is different.
Right. The gore versus the more sort of intellectual, horror. And I mean, and Silent Hill is a really interesting example, because Silent Hill is a American set horror game made by Japanese developers, right? And now they're making a Japanese set game. So that's interesting even to think like how they might approach that differently, right? Because they are sort of looking at, I assume, like Western media, movies, television shows.
For the old games.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the original Silent Hill games. Certainly Stephen King seems like a huge influence on those. So that's always kind of interesting just to think about. Let's see. Yesterday was Nintendo's birthday.
Happy birthday, Nintendo.
Yes. Happy birthday, Nintendo. They turned 136 years old, which I just think is kind of cool to always bring up the fact that Nintendo is a very old company, way older than most people realize. Most people sort of think of Nintendo as, early 1980s. Donkey Kong is when Nintendo began, but like they were already around for 90 years at that point. So very cool just to kind of think about. Obviously, we had the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers recently. So video games, that era of video games is very much kind of a blip in their history. Like really a third of their history. Obviously, if you're not familiar, if you're listening to this and you're not familiar, Nintendo's got their start doing playing cards, actually, and eventually moved into toys. And you see some of that legacy. The what do they call it in the recent Zelda? Is it God Hand? It was actually like that name is taken from a toy that they made back in the 60s, I believe. And so it's kind of interesting just to think of video games are really still this very new medium.
Sure. Well, and it may also explain why Nintendo will release these, I don't know what you even want to call them, weird peripherals like a talking flower or an alarm clock, because video games aren't what they've always been. Like they've always, those ties go back to other things as well.
Yeah, and I think that also certainly informed their sort of design ethos for their early games, of thinking of video games much more from a toy perspective, rather than the design that a lot of people came into video games, right, from more of a tech background. Obviously like Rob the Robot and the Zapper for the original NES those were included to market the NES more as a toy and less as a video game because of the market crash from 1983. But like also when you think about a lot of modern Nintendo games, like we were talking about Zelda, particularly Tears of the Kingdom, the construction ability in that really feels more like a toy. You're sort of like playing almost with like digital Legos at some point.
Yep.
And so I think that really, when you start thinking from Nintendo's background, a lot of their design choices, Labo, for example, makes a whole lot of sense when you're like, oh, really, you're a toy company at heart, even if everybody knows you as a video game company more now. Okay, so we mentioned bad news. So this is maybe the most disturbing news of the week. The White House posted on their TikTok account footage of ICE at work, arresting people, rounding up people, and they set this to the Pokemon theme. The sort of gotta catch 'em all from the anime series. So people online are understandably offended and outraged by this. First, that they're taking something as wholesome as Pokemon and attaching it to something very political, but also that this seems to be, I think a lot of people view it as making light of the situation, something that's been very serious. I should say, as we are recording this, there was a shooting at an ICE detention center in Texas this morning. So obviously this is a situation, an issue that is very heated and feels like it's escalating more and more. Some people's reaction to this was also, Nintendo is an incredibly litigious company, and this feels like a situation where Nintendo would and probably might sue in response to this. So the Pokemon company actually did put out a statement. They said, quote, "Our company was not involved in the creation or distribution of this content, and permission was not granted for the use of our intellectual property." That's pretty, shut. That's a pretty open and shut kind of statement.
Yeah, you'd think that I would think that if this is the statement you're putting out, a cease and desist would probably follow shortly after of you need to take this down.
Yeah, I mean,
and it wouldn't, in my eyes at least, wouldn't make sense for the Pokemon company to not do that.
Right. Maybe they're not going to try to sue the federal government.
Yes.
Right? That's maybe a fight you don't want to pick. But a cease and desist makes a lot of sense. And before people get upset and say, oh, you're being too sensitive over this and everything, you are associating an intellectual property that is aimed at children with a very adult issue, right? So this would be no different if you were using Let It Go from Frozen, where Disney might do a similar cease and desist and say, hey, this is not like you're using the Imperial March from Star Wars. You're using something that is very child-coded.
Yeah. And I mean, literally dehumanizing, right?
Yeah.
In the way that it's representing people.
Right, as essentially animals.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what Pokemon is, right? And Pokemon began as bug fighting. Right?
Yeah.
And so they had also posted some images onto their social media that represented people they had captured as Pokemon cards. So they edited Pokemon cards and posted pictures of some of the people they had captured.
Yeah. When I first saw this, I was like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know all the details, of course, but I didn't know if parody law would be something that would protect this. But I think the fact that they're using the actual song and actual clips from the show would not protect it.
Well, and I think because my understanding of, copyright law is, well, there's parody, but there's also the potential for there to be confusion that Pokemon or Nintendo in some way endorses what this is being used in association with, right? Which if you're Nintendo, you do not want to be associated with in any way.
No.
So I think that's where, they could make the argument about parody. But parody falls apart when
I'm sorry to cut you off.
Parody seems to me to fall apart when people might genuinely be confused and be like, hey, Nintendo's okay with this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if it's one of those things where it's like, ethically, Nintendo, I would like to think Nintendo and the Pokemon Company wouldn't want to be associated with it. But also just like from a business standpoint, why would you alienate so much of your potential customer base as well? I mean, like that shouldn't be the reason why they say, hey, don't do this. But like, I could see that being part of the reason why they said, hey, don't do this.
I mean, Nintendo is a very cutthroat business.
Yeah, it is a business at the end of the day.
I mean, we're just talking about their like toy background, but like Nintendo does not play around when it comes to money.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a reason they're selling a $100 Virtual Boy shell, right? Because they know there's a lot of people who will pay it, and they're going to milk them for every dime they can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is, yes, the ethical, the moral quandaries around this are, I would hope for most people, like very obvious. But even if you are supportive of this to some extent, you have to understand Nintendo's perspective.
Yeah.
And why they do not want to be associated with it, which has nothing to do with politics, has everything to do with business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I will say, like, personally, or from the moral standpoint, at least from my perspective, it's a pretty disgusting video.
Agreed.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to talk about this intellectually, like, you know, a sort of detached way, like, why would Nintendo be upset over this and everything? Personally, like, you know, this is, I understand part of this is like, we'll own the libs, we'll make something that's really offensive, but, I mean, you're also the federal government.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be, you're not supposed to be using prisoners in this way. Like, this is, you know, to some degree, this is not quite to that extreme, but like this is on the same sort of path as Abu Ghraib.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when the prisoners in Abu Ghraib were, you know, sort of, you know, trotted out and like dehumanized and humiliated.
Yeah, it is that process of dehumanization, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I get that, you know, the slippery slope is, you know, a fallacy in some ways, but like it does, you do have to worry about like, well, what is the next step of that dehumanization process look like?
This would be, you know, I think you brought up a really great point about it being dehumanizing and thinking of it as, you know, the Pokemon are animals. This would be like them playing Who Let the Dogs Out, right? Or anything by DMX. So,
it's also like you're ignoring so much of part of that song too. Like, you're my best friend and you teach me and I'll teach you. You're focusing only on one line of that song. It also just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a whole other issue, right?
Yeah. That is like, in terms of importance, that's like way at the bottom. But I did also think that when I watched it.
Well, I mean, this is the thing I always come back to about how many people using pop culture, using media, actually understand the message of the thing that they're using, right? It is the people who every 4th of July trot out Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen and do not get that is not a super patriotic song. It's a protest song.
It's Rage Against the Machine at whoever the political candidates that we're using for.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is, you know, the Everything is Wonderful Now that, you know, that gets played at weddings and you're like, you know, that song's about divorce, right? Like, this is like, you have to listen to more than the chorus. Yeah. And I mean, look, it says something about someone's intelligence when they do that to me, that like, you don't understand the stuff that you're using to push your message, that it is very much against your message. Church is playing Afternoon Delight. Like, you know, that song's about fucking. You know that, right? Like, it's not subtle. It's just there. It's not even a double entendre. It's kind of just a single entendre. All right. Let's see. In happier news, we talked about this on last week's episode. It has now been officially confirmed. Yakuza Kiwami 3 is, in fact, a real thing. The big news, I think, about it is that, in addition, it is including an additional part called Yakuza Kiwami 3 Gaiden, Dark Ties. And this will be sort of a side campaign, hence the Gaiden, that will focus on the villain from Yakuza 3. And so this is an entirely new little, like, kind of side quest and everything that you get to do. It will be accessible from the menu, so you can just start and play it. It's not integrated into the campaign. You don't have to play through the entire campaign to unlock it. Which I would assume would be appealing to people who maybe just want to play this new content. Sort of, I think before we went on the air, we were talking about it in reference to Super Mario 3D World and the Bowser's Fury content.
Yeah.
Kind of a setup similar to that. Obviously, last week you talked about being excited for this. Does this increase the excitement any, or...
I mean, yes. I think because I haven't really played Yakuza 3, the side story, it moves the needle in the sense of, like, I think that's really cool and I will be excited to experience that. But I'm not going in thinking like, oh my God, I can't wait to see the story from this character's perspective because I don't know the story to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, it's neat that if they're going to take the time to go back and do these remasters and remakes to add additional content.
Yeah. And I think I had also talked about this before we had started. I thought that was one of the coolest parts about Kiwami 2 was the things that they had added to that game go back and reference parts of Yakuza 0's story, which obviously came out after the original 2. And so the original 2 wouldn't have had that as part of the game. And so it excites me that they're doing stuff like this that's adding to the content, adding to the context in the sense of, like, building sort of the lore and the overarching, like, storylines of these characters and stuff.
It's like how the Star Wars special editions included some of the scenes from some of the locations from the prequel trilogy and everything in there, right? Even though, like, I think it shows them celebrating on Naboo and everything. To sort of tie the franchise better together and everything. I think it's always neat when they do this. Nintendo did this certainly quite a bit on the Switch 1 when they were doing the deluxe or whatever versions of Wii U games. They'd bring them over and add some additional content to them.
That's right. I forgot. They did that with whatever they did for the Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, right? They had like the Bowser Jr. mode.
Right.
Which I never did play that or check that out. I just thought of that now. But yeah, that it's cool. I think that that's such a good idea in the sense of if you're going to re-release this game or remaster or remake it entirely, adding something that, intrigues the audience to want to check it out more rather than just, I've played this game before, I don't need to buy it. And that was kind of my mentality for the Thousand Year Door remaster. I was like, I love this game. It's one of my favorites, but I don't need to rebuy it.
Yeah, I mean, both a cost issue and for me, it's often a time issue.
Sure.
Right? Like, oh, I've played that game before. Do I really want to go back and replay that entire game? Whereas something like this, like I rebought Super Mario 3D World. Even though I had played that game on the Wii U and really liked it, I rebought it to play Bowser's Fury. Right? So, I mean, just as a sales pitch.
Sure.
Yeah, it definitely works. Last bit of news here is Borderlands 4 has delayed indefinitely the Switch 2 version. That was supposed to come out just next week on October 3rd. They were releasing the Switch 2 version, and they came out and said, hey, this is not ready. This is almost undoubtedly tied to the technical hiccups they've been having with this game on other platforms, both on console and PC. So you can imagine that would be even more exasperated on the Switch 2, which is going to be the least powerful of those platforms.
Did Randy Pitchford have something obnoxious to say in response to this as well?
No, but like this is probably saving Randy Pitchford, because can you imagine if this game had come out and it just didn't run at all, really?
Yeah.
And he
It was
tried
a Mortal
to,
Kombat situation.
yeah, and he tried to defend it
Yeah.
on social media. Like, I mean, that is a PR disaster. Randy Pitchford is a PR disaster. I mean, it seems like everything that guy does is just a PR disaster.
Yeah, it's. I know we've talked about it, so we don't need to. It just so much of the things he says just feel so out of touch, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, almost to the point where, we talk about sometimes that things seem antagonistic. Like at times it feels like he's intentionally antagonizing the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really weird. There have been people in the game industry before who had sort of that personality. Cliffy B, it was one who, Cliffy B did Gears of War and stuff like that. But his was more kind of like, I don't know, sort of like poking the audience a little bit.
A little tongue in cheek or something like that.
Yeah, like maybe a little like get good,
sure.
that sort of thing. Whereas Randy Pitchford just
feels a little playful as compared to Randy Pitchford, which just is like, you're just kind of being an asshole, it feels like.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the big difference with him. And maybe just out of touch. Anyways, this is probably the smart, right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like if that game is in a bad state on much more powerful platforms, like hold off, like spend the extra time. Nobody's going to care that this comes out in February on Switch 2.
What is the quote that I think we've mentioned a number of times? I don't know if it comes from...
It's the Miyamoto.
Is it Miyamoto? Yeah, that a delayed game is better than a broken one or something like that.
Yeah, like I think it's that a bad game is always bad, but a delayed game can be good.
Yeah.
Something along
that sentiment, yeah.
And like that Borderlands 4 on the Switch 2 is probably never the like ideal way to play that game. But certainly those older Borderland games played pretty well on the Switch from everything I saw. And it doesn't seem like Borderlands should be a crippling game to run.
I wouldn't think so.
But oh well, that does it for news. Kind of a light news week and everything. Some, obviously heavy stories in there, but otherwise light as we are headed into Tokyo Game Show. So there is a PlayStation State of Play that is
happening right now.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I think it is actually happening right now. So sorry, we do not have the news on that because we are currently in the middle of recording this. Let me actually just pull this up and see if I can find any major headlines that have come out of that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, this is more of a joke than anything. This is a leaked PUBG trailer shows Sonic fighting a giant skibbity toilet. There's your big news.
I don't know if that's a joke.
I don't know.
I mean, you say that, and I'm just listening to it going, I don't know. Maybe that's true.
I mean, Kotaku posted it, so I'd be willing to believe, they have a pretty decent reputation, I think.
Let's see. One story here is that this is not even from Tokyo Game Show, but Transformers Fall of Cybertron has been relisted on Steam. It is not currently purchasable, but it is relisted back onto Steam. That's kind of interesting that maybe there's a remake or something coming out on that. Yeah, I am not seeing any headlines.
Yeah, I'm not seeing much either. Well, we'll have it for next week.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have quite a bit of news coming out of.
Oh, it might not. The state of play, I don't think it started yet. I think it starts
okay.
at 4 hour time. So in about 15 minutes it'll start.
Oh, okay. I thought it was 3 hour time, but I must have had that confused. Anyways, we will have that and probably a lot more news coming out of Tokyo Game Show. Maybe something on that new Forza Horizon we think we're going to get set in Japan or somewhere in Asia. All right, well, let's move on to our big question. And our big question is kind of one looking back. So what is the first video game you can remember playing? And do you want to, I think you have Christina's answer.
Yeah, Christina left an answer before having to leave. And I think she's told this story before on the podcast. But it's playing Nightmare on Elm Street on the NES. And I think maybe we can just get her to tell it again next week. But I know it's something of the effect of her parents were over at a neighbor's house at a party or something like that. And they said, don't play this game. And of course, played the game, turned it on, and Freddy kind of pops up on screen.
Yeah,
and
it's on the title screen.
Scared her to where she said she ran out of the house to go find her parents. And so, like I said, I think she's told that on here before. It's a good story. If not, like I said, we'll have her tell it again next week.
I mean, it's a good story. It's one of those stories that sounds a little traumatic as a child. And then when you think about Christina's love of things like Dead by Daylight, you go, that's really weird. Like they traumatized you into loving it, which sounds...
it's like the opposite of OJ, right? Didn't OJ have all these childhood experiences that he would laugh about, but at the same time, it's like, I probably shouldn't laugh about those things.
Well, you feel bad laughing at OJ's stories. OJ would tell a story on here. If you go back and listen to those episodes, and often I would start laughing. I'd go, I'm sorry I'm laughing. And they would say, no, I understand. It's completely, that's completely the correct response, even if this is a terrible story. But I feel like Christina has this abusive relationship with horror icons where they have traumatized her enough into where she's in this like sort of what is it, like the
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, the Stockholm syndrome with them. So like now that's all the games that she plays. But yeah, we might let her offer her 2 cents and everything. We're not going to try to psychoanalyze her too much. All right. Well, how about you, Mario?
So I was thinking about this, and I think the first one that always comes to mind is Super Mario Land on the Game Boy. It's either that or the original Pokemon games, but I feel like Super Mario Land came earlier.
So was the Game Boy like the first console you remember having in your house?
Yes, definitely. I think for most of my childhood, I didn't have, well, it was definitely a number of years where I had a Game Boy and did not have like a television console. And so I kind of always was a Game Boy kid. That's why I think part of me, I think still I play the Switch almost entirely in handheld mode, that there's something that just feels like, oh yeah, this is how I would want to play this anyways. And so, yeah, a lot of those Game Boy games that I played a lot of, and I think Super Mario Land was really the first one.
What a weird Mario game to start with. Like maybe one of the weirdest, if not the weirdest. Like
yeah, that's probably fair.
Because it doesn't have any of the traditional Mario things in it for the most part. Like even the fireballs are like the super balls.
Yeah,
weird.
yeah. Well, you've got like enemies that don't ever show up again, like the Maui heads that are kind of like flying around, and there's like a UFO guy that like can split his body in half, and like,
well, isn't that the final boss? It's the UFO you fight?
No, you fight. It's it's like an airplane, I'm pretty sure, but I'm thinking there's like a robot that like does like a circular motion with like the top half of its body. And anyways, like I said, I never beat that game as a kid, but have recently returned to it within the past couple of years and have beat it. And Yeah, it is. It's a weird one, but it has a lot of nostalgia for me.
That game's pretty simple when you play it older,
Yeah.
but like as a kid, it could be quite challenging.
Yeah, I remember, we would do camping trips with my dad's friends, and some of the older kids. I remember giving him my Game Boy, and I feel like he just kind of cruised through it, and just me being probably 4 or 5 years old, just being like in awe of like, oh my, how did you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was, when I got my Game Boy, that was one of the, I guess the first game other than Tetris that came with it that I bought with that. And it's a very beloved game. Like, it is one of those games I have a lot of nostalgic feelings for, even though that game, I feel like mostly gets overlooked.
Sure.
Even compared to the later Mario Land and Wario Land games.
Yeah, I think
Game Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I may have talked about this before. Like, it's probably something for the Atari 2600. That was the first console I remember us having. So I feel like we had a Sesame Street game for that, which I would have to look up and find like what Sesame Street game that was. But like I do remember playing that both at home and my friend Kyle's house. They had an Atari, so I remember playing it at his house as well. But it's harder for me to think of a specific game. Probably the game that like I think of most when I think of being a little kid and like really being the sort of game that got me into video games would have been something more on the Commodore 64. And I would have been a little older by then. But, that would have been something like, I don't know, Miner 2049er on there, Beachhead, like those sorts of games, that sort of era of computer games are the ones I like think of. Those are the ones that my brother and sister and I, when we reference a video game from our childhood, we're almost always referencing one of those games. There was a Haley's Comet game on the Commodore 64, which none of us understood how to play that game or exactly what you were trying to do. I feel like that's the sort of game, if I went back and played it today, I would go, oh, this is like way easier than I thought it was.
Yeah.
But at the time when you're a little kid, you're like, I don't know, I'm piloting a spaceship. This is really cool. But like, I don't understand where I'm going. There's Haley's Comet. Can I crash into it? And that becomes the way you play it. Not advisable, but fun for a little kid. All right, that does it for today's show. Thank you to Christina and Mario. Thank you to everyone listening. You can always find past episodes and more stuff by going to our website at salukigames.com. Obviously, we welcome you to rate this podcast. If you're not subscribed, please do. Giving us a positive rating always helps for discoverability so that other people will find the podcast. We do post episodes up onto YouTube, and obviously it's subscribable wherever you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other locations. So yeah, that does it for this week. Like I said, probably next week, a whole lot of news and everything. Plus next week, I feel like is officially entering spooky season, right? We get into October.
Right, it's the first next Wednesday, right?
Yeah. So that'll be exciting and everything. We'll have to do some stuff with spooky games to celebrate. I feel like this is Christina's like moment to shine when we start looking at some of those spooky games. But anyways, that'll do it for this week. Until next time, take care of yourselves, play something fun, and we'll talk to you again next week.